Welcome to the August version of the League of Women Voters, LA County's and Beach Cities Water and Infrastructure Group. We're continuing our series about transportation, and today, I'm Grace Peng. I'm one of the natural resource directors for League of Women Voters, LA County. And I share that distinction, that responsibility with Kathy Kuniz, who could not make it here today. But I'm going to talk about congestion pricing, what it is, and why League of Women Voters California and League of Women Voters LA County has been so vocally in support of it. I forgot to share my screen. So again, I'm Grace Peng. I'm one of the co-leaders of the Water Infrastructure Group. And last year, League of Women Voters LA County did a deep dive into congestion pricing because LA County through Metro was studying whether or not we wanted to implement congestion pricing in LA. And at that time, we thought that we would be second in the country, that New York was going to be doing congestion pricing now, and that LA would follow shortly thereafter. And well, if you read the newspapers, that is not what happened, but we still have hope that LA County will implement congestion pricing, and maybe we'll be the leaders and New York will follow our lead. But what is congestion pricing? And when I went and I did a deep dive, it turned out that it means different things. It has been implemented differently in different countries and different cities based on the specific issues that they're trying to address in their area. Well, what's LA like? LA is synonymous with traffic congestion, and we have been complaining and suffering from it for over 100 years. And although we're right to be concerned about tinkering with the status quo, because we don't want to make things worse for the most vulnerable in our area, we also have to recognize that the status quo is immensely unfair, and it costs everyone money, time, and health. In fact, it costs people. Like, you and I sit in traffic and we are upset because it takes us 3 hours instead of 2 hours to get between here and San Diego on the 405. Or it takes us an hour to get to UCLA instead of 30 minutes. But communities that live along the freeway are paying for it by having decades knocked off their life expectancy. We're not talking about years. We're talking about decades being knocked off their life expectancy. So that's a time cost of the status quo. And so the way that we're getting around right now causes untold misery. There's pollution, there's noise, there's traffic violence, which we heard about last month. There is it cuts communities in half. It makes it very hard to get around. And it's just so inequitable that we have to do something. And then also transportation emissions are the top CO2 emissions category in LA County in California, and one of the top 2 nationwide. So, and switching to electric vehicles has not helped us at all. Our CO2 emissions in California from transportation have remained flat even as we've adopted electric vehicles, because we keep replacing smaller cars with SUVs and smaller engines with more powerful engines. Cars that go 0 to 60 in 4 to 6 seconds are pretty common now. And that has been eating up all the gains that we've made through electrification of transportation. So there is no substitute for getting out of cars. And it turns out we've done all sorts of carrots and none of them have ever worked. But in every city worldwide that has implemented congestion pricing, they have seen immediate relief. We're talking 15, 25, 40%. Like the least restrictive ones see a 15% reduction in driving. The typical ones are seeing 25 to 40% reduction in driving in the congested areas. That is a huge CO2 savings. And also the air pollution in these cities that have implemented it have gone down 25 to 40%. Like it happens overnight. You implement congestion pricing, and the pollution and the congestion just goes away. It is, if there was a magic bullet in terms of urban congestion, road pricing is it. Now, and it's not a new idea. It's been used for over 30 years in international cities. And here's the US Federal Highway Administration looking, sending out a primer to all 50 states in 2006. Not only that, they were, when they wrote this, they were already looking at how it was working internationally. And so this is a really good report to learn more about how it worked internationally. It's 18 years old, and but it's still a good one for explaining how it works. And now, when I was looking at LA County study to do congestion pricing and what the proposals were, I thought it was a pretty good idea. First I did some research and I read stuff like this primer and I read some academic articles. And then I called up, and I highly, highly recommend this for doing League of Women Voters when you want to take action and advocacy. You call up our advocacy, the League of Women Voters California advocacy team. And I was able to get a 30-minute Zoom consultation with our Vice President of Advocacy, Gloria Chanhu. And she said she was able to just list all these League California policies that support road pricing, and she was very eager to see it implemented in California. And then she also gave me a really good tip, which is that even though this isn't legislation, use our legislative analysis form, because this template helps you look at the pros and cons and and make sure that you're not missing something, that you're you're backing up your thinking with league policies, and also by looking at the pros and cons. So this is so you can download this template from the League California website in the advocacy area. Highly recommend it. So then she gave me some to look at, and I read everything, all the different policy positions very carefully to pull out so we can understand what she's talking about. And because I'm a scientist, and I know that congestion pricing is a slam dunk in terms of air pollution and CO2 emissions. But remember, League is also a social policy. Like we're concerned not just with the physical systems, we're also concerned with the social systems of social justice and good governance. And so we have to consider all those things in order to make a decision first we start with congestion pricing is a transportation solution. So we look at the transportation position. And you'll notice that we're quite clear that like we favor things that influence travel behavior, strategies to influence travel behavior, such as fees, taxes, and tolls, combined with mitigation measures for low-income persons. And then alternatives to single occupancy vehicles, blah, blah, blah. But this is number one is central to our social mission, which is protecting the most vulnerable amongst us. So even though congestion pricing would be a good thing for decongestion of urban areas, we have to make sure that low-income people are protected against hardship because of this. And then the next one is we look at our climate change thing, and we want to promote a clean and sustainable low energy economy that includes all forms of renewable energy and transportation infrastructure. So, we want to low carbon energy conservation, low carbon transportation right here, and then reduce automobile dependence, and then remember, promote solutions that ease climate-related hardships to low and moderate income households. So when I go through that template and that matrix, I gotta write not just what it does in terms of air pollution and CO2 emissions, but how will it impact low and moderate income households, and how are we going to make it easier, make sure that it's not a hardship for them. And then we also have like meeting basic human needs, and access to transportation is a basic human need, and mobility is a basic human need. And so we also have like criteria for income assistance, and that it cannot be too administratively burdensome for low-income people to navigate. So we want things to be easily accessible, but we also want to be able to do like a spot check in like about 1% of people have their income tax returns audited every year, and a portion of those are just random. Like people that have anomalous income tax returns get audited, and also people that have like normal income tax returns, they also have a small like 1% chance of being audited in any given year. So I took that as saying that like we'll let people self-attest, and then we'll spot check them to make sure that they are low income, they are what they profess to be. So anyway, UCLA, like right here at the top, UCLA had in this study on fighting traffic congestion, they talk about different ways that they could reduce traffic congestion, and they talk about reparations to the communities that are harmed by the traffic congestion. And so this was in 2020, and then in 2022, UCLA wrote another one. Actually, this was requested by Metro, talk about like if we were to implement congestion pricing lanes in LA County, how are we going to put guardrails on it to protect the lowest income households? And so that would be like, so they estimate that like the 13% of the lowest income households. And so I also read this report, and when we wrote our letter, we suggested that Metro and LA County implement these guardrails because these were evidence-based, and they also made a lot of sense to laymen like me. And furthermore, congestion pricing is used around the world, and in the proposal for LA County for what it was going to do in New York City. They collect money they collect money to and from people who are driving at peak times, which is the cause of the congestion, and then they use it on transportation. They use it in transportation for things that relieve congestion, whether that's mode shift or time shift. And wait, did I go here? What did I do? Okay, I'm missing a slide. Congestion pricing is just a way of, it's a market-based way to shift. Oh, it's right here. Use the power of the market to reduce traffic congestion by shifting it to other modes or other times. And so in LA, we already have these little fast track things where you can say you have one person, two people, or three people in your car, and you can be charged differential rates when you're using the HOV lanes. Like, so you can be a solo driver in an HOV lane, but you would pay for it. And then if you're in a carpool with two or three people, you could use the HOV lane for free. So we already have that technology within LA. So that's where it allows us to say, if you're in a carpool, you'll pay less or you won't pay at all. If you're, like if you're using it off peak, you'll pay less or you won't pay at all. So like in New York, like at peak times, they were going to charge $15 to come into Lower Manhattan. And if you came like in the early morning hours, like a lot of service workers come in to work at the hotels and stuff like that, they would pay only $3 or $4. So that's shifting in time or shifting in or shifting into transit, because you can use that money to make transit more frequent and more convenient. Like in Singapore, they use that money to create park and rides outside the central business district. And then they have, like in Singapore, they're running a bus or a train every couple minutes. So we raise money on the behaviors that we're trying to discourage, and then we spend that money on the behaviors that we're trying to encourage. And then we also spend that, League wants to be sure that that money is also spent in a way to take care of the lowest income households, to protect the lowest income households in our area. And we're actually really fortunate in LA because we have this thing called the LIFE program. Low income fare is easy. And you can go up to a transit ambassador at a train station and you could do self-attestation that you're low income. And they'll sign you up right then, and then you can get a tap card that gives you 90 days of free transit. And that after your 90 days are up, your tap card will your transit card will automatically fill up every month with 20 free rides every month. It's kind of like EBT, the food stamp program, where you actually get EBT clients get a card that they can use for food, and it just automatically fills up every month. So sorry. And so Jan, can you mute yourself? So anyway, so it works a lot like income tax income tax returns, in that 1% of the LIFE clients are selected and asked to provide income verification. And that income verification can be a W-2, or it could be their income tax return. It could be a paycheck stub. It could be the fact that they're getting EBT or reduced cost school lunches. That all counts as income verification. So it's not very onerous. You know, people sign up for it. They say, I'm low income, and we'll take them at their word. And then trust but verify. You know, 1% at random, we ask you, verify that you are low income. Well, it turns out that when they've been doing this for a while, 98% of the people that have been asked for income verification are able to produce the income verification. And then the other 2% are like people who like just recently got a higher paying job. Turns out there's very little fraud in the LIFE program, and much less so than income tax returns. So like we have a system that works. And the LIFE, the low income fair is easy, has been available in LA County, and it's been working. And in the since 2021, UCLA has been working on a further study on a universal basic mobility wallet. They were given grant funding to study, you know, what happens when you give people a mobility wallet, which is just it's like an EBT card. It looks like a Visa card, but automatically it loaded up with $150 every month that you can use at any one of 70 different mobility services. And that could be that could be a car rental, it could be a taxi cab, it could be a metro, it could be public transit, it could be bike share, scooter rental. It could be Amtrak tickets, Metrolink tickets. Also, bike shops and car rental companies were taking it. And like in the very first iteration of the very first 1,000 people, one of them just saved up their $150 multiple months and went and bought an e-bike and rode that around. So because this is a pilot program, and they only had like thousands of people applied for it, but they only had they had 1,000 people selected at random, and then within South LA, because the grant funding was targeted for South LA. Then they also took a control group of people who applied for but weren't randomly selected, and then the control group was matched with like income and age and geography to see, you know, how much of a difference did it make versus, you know, people who got the mobility wallet versus people who didn't get the mobility wallet. So the papers are already out for the first phase of the study, and they're really very promising. And now they're taking applications for the second phase. And in the second phase, there'll be 1,000 people in South LA, and then we got funding to do 1,000 people, 1,000 households all around LA County, anywhere in LA County. So if you know someone who's low income and lives in LA County, tell them to apply for this, because we want to have as broad a cross section as people as possible. And so like who are the low income fair's easy clients, right? It turns out they tend to be women. They're you know, more female-headed households are more likely to live with poverty than male-headed households, and so it's not surprising that we have slightly more women than men in the LIFE survey. And also, even though the LIFE, we have a high, more than half of the low income the life clients are Hispanic. We had the survey respondents were slightly lower. We think it has to do with the with the language barriers to like even though they had bilingual questionnaires, a lot of people just throughout the questionnaire because they didn't realize that you could scan something and take the survey in Spanish. But anyway, so once we were convinced that if LA were to implement congestion pricing, we know how to mitigate it because we know how to find the low income people and we know how to get money to them. And so for mobility related services. Then I was able to take so in early June, I started filling out this legislative analysis form. And like League is a consensus based community, and even like majority rules, but we really like it to be unanimous. We want all of us to feel good about the decisions that we make. And so even though we have vigorous debates internally about like, what about this, what about that, and all that, like we try to make sure that we address everybody's concerns and that we make a decision as a group that is consensus based and we all feel good about. And then once we make a decision to advocate one way or the other, then we speak with one voice. So vigorous internal debate, and then in public, we speak with one voice. And speaking with one voice is really important, which is why I had to call League California advocacy team to make sure that we were all on board. In fact, they not only were they encouraging me to take action on congestion pricing, they were telling me in no uncertain terms that you will take action because we've been waiting for someone to step up, and LA is perfect. So so LA has to step up, and also LA County League has to step up because League California advocacy told us we had to. But we also had to get buy-in within our own members. And so if you look, June 4th is when I started the analysis. Our letter went out October 30th. Because we had vigorous internal debate and we had to make sure that everyone's concerns were addressed. And also because there was so much more research that was coming out all the time that we wanted to be sure that we added that in to our letter. So so this matrix thing is 4 pages of concerns and mitigations and data and reports that I was citing and so. So this is like 4 pages of analysis, and then this is a 3-page letter. Is it 2.5-page letter? And I also have some backup stuff that we have time, so I'm going to show you. Like for instance, the 3 areas that are targeted are downtown LA, which is a cordon area, which is the most common type of congestion pricing, where the central business district of a city, you have to pay in order to enter the central business district. That's called a cordon area. Then toll roads, we're familiar with the toll roads. Like if they were talking about doing a toll road on I-10, pricing all lanes of I-10 between Santa Monica and downtown LA. And that's just a toll road, but with variable tolls based on how congested it is. So different times of day, like in the middle of the night, they won't charge anything. And then they might charge a very small amount, like in the middle of the day. And then at peak times, it might charge a few bucks. And then the other idea was the I-405. It's called corridor pricing, where you don't want people to get off of the 405 freeway and take the canyon roads to avoid paying for it. So you're going to price all of the routes in the corridors, so not just the 405, but all of the canyon roads that take you over the Santa Monica Mountains. So the first phase of the feasibility studies come out, and it looks like the downtown LA Cordon area is the most feasible area, and because it's easy. You'll charge people to get off of the freeway and get on the surface streets of downtown LA, which are just jammed. And it's important to realize that people who live near freeways, they don't just pay with the air pollution and like the being ill from the air pollution, but they also pay with life and limb. This is just 2020 through the first quarter of 2024 near the LA Unified building in downtown LA. 9 people died in just a little more than 3 years right here. This is the Safe Routes to School. California has a Safe Routes to School map database, GIS database. So you can look at any school and you could see how many traffic collisions have impacted people outside of cars in the vicinity of every school in the state of California. And so this is just within a half-mile vicinity of the LA Unified headquarters. 9 people have died in just over in 4 years. It's just, and 24 severe injury, life-changing injuries. Yeah, these are people that might have lost limbs, or they're going to be in severe pain the rest of their lives. So anything that we can do to reduce driving, it not only helps us with our climate goals and with our air pollution and our economic productivity, but it also helps people stay alive and keep all 4 of their limbs. That's really important to me. And then another thing that people said, well, what about disabled people? Like, disabled people need their cars. And Anna Zifforts wrote a wonderful book called When Driving is Not an Option, because people who are disabled are much less likely to be drivers than people who are able-bodied. It's not just the disabilities themselves that prevent you from driving. It's also that the disabilities prevents you from holding down a job that is high paying enough that you can afford the $1,000 a month expense of owning and operating a car. So if you take public transit, I'm a moderate public transit rider. I'm not like a daily rider, but when I'm on a bus, I see people with wheelchairs or walkers all the time. And in fact, Anna Zifforts just put this on her Twitter. She just posted this on her Twitter account this afternoon. She was taking a bus back after testifying in Olympia, Washington. She lives in the state of Washington. She was testifying about mobility options for people who are disabled. She has low vision, and so she's able to ride a bike, but she's not able to drive. She rides an e-bike, and she rides a bicycle with her children next to her. So her children are her eyes and ears, and she's she's low vision, but not blind. But you'll see that there are I think there might be 3 wheelchairs sitting in this bus. And they're all motorized wheelchairs, which means that when I go downtown, I see people in these motorized wheelchairs all the time. They're using the bike lanes the motorized wheelchairs go 6, sometimes 15 miles per hour. And so they're going as fast as a regular or an e-bike. And so they use the bike lanes and they just, so people combine buses or trains with a motorized wheelchair, and they're living very independent and full lives this way. And so this woman is younger, and she actually uses like I use an e-bike where I pedal and it assists my pedaling. They have electric wheelchairs that are like this, like it you still roll, you still use your arms to roll, but an electric motor assists you so that you can roll faster or up a steeper hill than you could without a motor. So there's been just great technology lately for disabled people. And if you're out and about on a bus, you see people using these, and it's great. So we wrote our letter in October 30th and in support of it. And so that's a 3-page letter. And you can see you can read the letter at this link. And with that,